So, what is non-duality? So all different teachers teach in different ways, and I always feel like the more that you get into this subject, the more that your mind becomes like good at acrobatics. Like, so rather than yoga of the body, it's like your mind begins to be able to do yoga of the mind. You can stretch in all different ways. And what you might begin to notice, what happens, is as you begin to like lose more and more judgments, you begin to, rather than looking for differences in the way teachers speak, you look for similarities. And then it's like you begin to hear it everywhere. You know, and you can hear it in Christianity or just in films, like regular films, you'll like be hearing it. So, yeah, so the way I speak is obviously going to be very different from the way Angelo speaks, and just try to look for the sameness rather than the differences between the way we speak. So, non-duality to me is, well, non-duality to me actually is inexpressible. If I really go in, it's like I can't even begin to express to you what that is. So what I think tends to happen with teachers is they tend to veer towards the way in which they were taught. But everything that I say from that perspective is never really grasping it. Like you can't really get to non-duality. So when you listen to me speak about it, see if you can listen from two different places, like the mind, and then also like something else, which is an indescribable something else. But I remember when I first started hearing it, and I first heard it in Buddhism, like there was a knowing that was deeper than my mind. I didn't really understand what they were talking about, but I just kind of knew what they were talking about. So I was taught from more of an Indian tradition. My teacher was Roger Castillo, main teacher. There was lots of different teachers, but he was my main teacher. And his teacher, which was also my teacher, was Ramesh Balsekar, and his teacher was Nisargadatta Maharaj. So you will see the similarities when you hear me speak. So the way in which it's expressed through that line is that the ultimate is called awareness. I call it big consciousness though, but Nisargadatta would say awareness. And then he would also call it the absolute or the beyond. And he would even say it's beyond awareness at points as well. He sort of changed. So, and he would say what happens in waking up is that consciousness meets beingness, and then there is ananda, sat, chit, ananda. So consciousness meets beingness, and then there is ananda. And what does that mean? Well, so we all have this ability to focus our attention. So you can put your attention on me, or you can put it on the person sitting next to you. You can put it on your feet. You can put it on the sounds that are happening outside or the ticking clock. And then you can also put it on the feeling of I am or the feeling of beingness. So you can also put it on your heart, that sense of being here. And you might notice that when you do that, when you move your attention into the feeling of I amness, you might notice like a spark of love. That also might be what you notice when you hear other teachers speaking about it or someone describing non-duality. There's like this spark of energy or love. And that is the beginning of it, but only the beginning, when your personal attention meets I amness. But that goes so much deeper than what I'm saying, because the personal attention is still a mind activity. So personal consciousness is mind activity. And the reason that you know that is because it moves. And anything which moves is not your true your true nature. Anything that moves is in the dream. Anything that's perceived is in the dream. And what you are is prior to that, before that. However, in the tradition I come from, that is spoken about as the bridge. Your personal consciousness is the bridge or the gateless gateway to the big consciousness. Even though it's still part of the mind, it has the similarity to the big consciousness, and that is perception, awakeness, consciousness. It is conscious. So personal consciousness. You're moving and you're perceiving. So wherever you move it, you're perceiving. But it's still limited because it moves and because you know that's happening. But it has the big consciousness in it. So you could think of it like a paper bag. So if I have a paper bag here, and I pierced 20 holes, I think there's 20 of us here. So I pierced 20 holes in the bag, and then I put a light inside the bag, you would get 20 lights coming out of the bag. Those 20 lights are the personal consciousness. They're personalized, they're seemingly divided, but yet, if you follow that light back, you end up in the one light, the big consciousness. So, Satchitananda is that big consciousness once again meeting its lover, beingness. The consciousness is often referred to as the masculine and the beingness, the feminine. So if we go back to the personal consciousness and the feeling of I am, putting the personal consciousness in the feeling of I am, and you know that you get a glimpse when you do that. There's like a taste of it when you do that. Not for everybody maybe, but often there's a taste of it. So then what is the beingness, the I am? The I am is again the gateless gateway to the big beingness. And it's like the bag analogy, but just with beingness. And what is beingness? Beingness is a sense of being alive, that this is. So the consciousness is perception, and the beingness is aliveness. These are two qualities that never leave the experience. What happens, though, in the human daydream is the personal consciousness is always seemingly away from the aliveness and in the story of you. It's not really away from aliveness, it can never leave, but it feels like it. So the personal consciousness is lost in the daydream of you, which is a time-bound daydream. And the beingness is right here, it is in everything. So what has to happen for the two lovers to meet again is the consciousness has to come back here. And you get so many beautiful analogies of this in mythology, like you get this analogy of Sita dancing. Sita is life, the feminine, dancing for Shiva, the masculine, to come back to reunite. So this life is dancing for you, calling you back in every moment. And when you really pay attention, you'll notice, why is everything so freaking beautiful? Because it's here. Why is it we open the door and we go outside and we're met by this immense, lush green in multiple different colours that don't stop growing? They just, if you stop putting up concrete or plastic or something, then the green just goes and goes and goes. And then the sunlight and the sky. Whenever you're in a city, which you might think is ugly, but actually it's really beautiful, I always think to myself, if ever the city is getting too much, you just look up to the sky. And I used to have a prejudice against clouds because I'm from England. And sometimes in England you get clouds for 6 months, and people don't believe that, but honestly, we just get these grey low clouds for 6 months. So I used to be oh, clouds are ugly. But then my partner is an artist, And he started describing to me like the beauty of clouds, and then I was like, far out. And so now, even when it's like what we think as a really grey, awful day, like the colour of the clouds and the light is amazing. Like, yeah, it's just, there's always the sky. But the city is actually really beautiful as well. It just depends on the way you look at it, whether you look at it through judgment or not. Like, why do we invent so many colourful cars with very odd faces? Like, and these wheels. Like, there's always, life is dancing from us constantly. Like, what about the insects? Like, I mean, and the variety of birds that we get as well. Like, life is in every moment being like here, here, here. So the feminine is dancing for the masculine to come back to itself. So this is getting very romantic. So who's all in love here that I'm picking up on? We got some people like falling in love. Maybe they're falling in love with Angelo. It's all coming. No, Angelo is the feminine. No, he's the masculine, but we can imagine him dancing for us. Yeah. So basically, that's kind of the way non-duality is, except it isn't because we can't really speak about it. So it's basically this coming back to what's actually here. And when we come back to what's actually here, it actually goes beyond the idea of consciousness and beingness. And we're just left with this unspeakable, unnameable thing that is, which isn't divided, isn't away from us, isn't something outside of us. Most of the suffering in the human realm is because of this idea of outside. Like, outside. There is somebody outside to me, away from me. It doesn't seem like that would be the problem, but it is. Like we're walking around separating ourselves from everything and from everybody. And we're scared of people. And we're scared of the environment. We're scared of this.